keeps us safe?
We keep us safe.
Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe.
Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe.
Who keeps us safe?
We keep us safe.
Lord, let's go!
Yeah, I believe it's better that we should just shut down school, not because we want to get out of school, but because there's so many cases, and even if we're in school, there's no doubt that we can still get COVID.
So even before COVID, our school is extremely overcrowded, and COVID only makes it worse. Our hallways are always crowded, our lunchrooms are even worse. There is no way that my school can ever truly be safe.
The way that things have been handled have been abysmal.
Right now we have rampant COVID-19 cases. Teachers are constantly falling sick and having to be overburdened with extra classes, with extra students, and it's not sustainable.
We're almost at 200 positive cases and we still haven't shut down.
I live with 2 grandparents who are immune compromised, plus a couple of other family members, so I don't want to go to school, risk getting sick, and then have to come home to them.
So the quote-unquote safety agreement that was concluded out of CPS and CTU sitting at the table together, there was no young people sitting at that table.
The current situation is unsustainable. To do nothing is abdicating the schools district's responsibility to our community.
This will not be the last of it if the provincial government doesn't make change. We will continue to protest and we will find other ways to make them hear our voice.
This has been a really exciting week in terms of the growth of student action and student walkouts, student strikes, to make the fight to end COVID-19 by first and foremost stopping the spread of the disease, which means shutting in-school learning down and making every single district in the nation a fully remote district. The only thing that will work is acting, is walking out, is taking action. When that stops, then it is for sure certain that the people who oppose virtual learning will win. And they'll win not because they stand on the side of right, not because they care about human life, not because they care about the mental health of the students or anyone else. They'll win because they have behind them rich and powerful forces in this society that want to get the economy reopened by having students go back into schools and parents going back to work, no matter what the human loss or human cost of that might be.
The number of students who are not going to school is in the, I'd have to say it's well over 8,000 or 9,000 in the district, because it's a district of 20,000, and this half the students are out on any given day. Bottom line, we need the schools closed from the school boards, etc. But if we don't go, if students don't go, we're shutting down the schools.
The most effective way to get a school district to go to remote learning is for parents to refuse to send their children to school, students refuse to go to school, and keep demanding virtual learning, remote education for everyone. This is life or death. This is astounding to be in a society in which our leaders at every level of government have decided that what the American people need to do is get used to high death rates and accept it. To have leaders that have tried to demoralize us and lie to us, leaders whose main motivation has been to get the economy started, whatever the human cost might be. This is an outrageous situation, and it's like when you're fighting, when you're out there and you're telling the truth, you're swimming against the tide. But believe me, we've learned that you are speaking for millions and millions of people who will not submit, who will not say it's okay, that in a very short period of time, we're going to have 1 million people dead in America because of COVID-19. That no, this is unacceptable. We have to bring this era to an end. And the only way to do that is to take maximum precautions and for the movement to assert itself and make sure that we are in charge from now on of what COVID-19 policies will be in this country, because everyone else has failed, but we can win.
I was one of the organizers at the SVPS walkout, and it was district-wide. We had middle schoolers and high schools involved in it, and the walkouts actually went pretty well. We got a lot of support from students, we got support from media, and yeah, our school district currently has about 3,000 COVID cases, meaning we get about 1,000 new COVID cases a week. About 4 out of 7 of my classes had substitutes who were sent in from the district and weren't even qualified teachers. My foundations class had no teacher for a couple days, and one of our substitutes was not whatsoever qualified to be a teacher. He wouldn't wear his mask right, all those kinds of things. In reality, like we all know, the school board isn't the ones that are in the schools. We see what's happening, and it's not safe whatsoever. And yet they're not listening to those who are in the schools, and they're making all of their calls on what is best for their jobs and what is best for their reputation, and not what's best for the safety of all of us.
Most of what a school district is doing in their policies is just telling you enough, whatever they have to say, the minimum of what they could possibly do to convince people to come back to school so that the parents of the children can go to work and be making more money in the economy. You cannot take any of the public safety measures just by themselves, and you can't skimp on these things. Shutdowns. Before this pandemic occurred just a few years ago, everyone knows what happened when a school has an outbreak of measles or mumps. The school closes down. It's so simple. This was like basic procedure, basic medical, best practice, just a few years ago, even though it feels like ancient history now. COVID-19 is much more dangerous than measles. It's much more deadly. The study was published in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, showed that school closures reduces the numbers of deaths by 58% in what we've seen in the United States, and it reduces the number of cases by 62%. That's a reduction of more than half. And so it means our public health officials and school administrators know that when they are opening schools, they are doubling, more than doubling, the number of cases and deaths. They have health advisors who can give them this information. And when they are opening schools during a surge like we're having, and this is the biggest surge we've seen so far, they know they are dramatically increasing the number of people who die. That is about the most irresponsible decision any leader could make if you're responsible for anyone. And we are in a situation in which COVID is getting better at infecting children. There is no excuse for vaccines not to be mandatory. For decades upon decades, it has been completely normal for students to need to be vaccinated for measles and mumps before attending school at all. This is the measure that most greatly reduces hospitalizations and deaths by more than 90%. And what that means is the majority of hospitalizations and deaths from COVID, the vast majority of them, are preventable. There's no need for them to happen. It could have been prevented to begin with. So if a district administrator is not talking about mandatory vaccines for all, they are not serious about protecting human life. It is just such a simple, commonplace measure. If you have the opportunity to save hundreds of thousands of lives and you don't, where do you really draw the line between negligence and mass murder? Testing. We now know that with Omicron in particular, the virus has evolved to a point at which it is very hard for the rapid tests to detect Omicron. So the lie that we are going to be confronted with, and that we have seen now multiple times in a row, is the lie, oh, things are going down now, everything's going to get better, we can all go back to normal. We have now heard this 4 times. They told people, oh, look, Delta infections are finally going down. So that means it's safe to travel for the holidays this year. You can, visit your families for, Thanksgiving and Christmas, just get yourself tested. And of course, that left everyone vulnerable to Omicron. That is the only rule that the virus follows. The only law that it will obey is the law of evolution. The more it spreads, and when you get lots of those mutations, you get genetic diversity. And so every successive version we have seen, something new becomes better at reproducing itself.
If the schools stay open, the spread of the virus will continue, and it will continue to change. It will continue to mutate. There will be more breakthrough cases, and we will be living with COVID as it is now, controlling our lives for an interminable amount of years to come.
The United States has already lost 1 out of every 400 people in the country as a whole. But contrast that with countries that have done real lockdowns. Australia has lost 1 out of every 11,000. In New Zealand, 1 out of every 98,000. 1 out of 311,000 in China versus 1 out of every 400 in the United States doesn't sound like it could possibly be the same pandemic, but it is. This is just how much or how little you can control the pandemic with policy. This is a controllable event. There is an article out today showing that during the pandemic alone, just during the short window of time, the world's 10 richest men doubled their wealth. And that is blood money. That was at the expense of hundreds of thousands of lives in the United States and millions of lives all over the world. And we are not going to sacrifice the lives of the nation's children, the nation's parents and teachers and everybody for the sake of helping those billionaires make more billions.